Why don't you go ahead, Megan?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan, and I am part of the events team here at University Bookstore in Seattle, Washington. Tonight, we are thrilled to have authors and podcasters Jenn Bane and Trin Garritano. Since 2015, their podcast Friendshipping has been providing relatable and accessible advice on the topic of friendship. And they have recently released a book, which is titled Friendshipping, The Art of Finding Friends, Being Friends, and Keeping Friends, which is a beautifully written and illustrated book. It's basically a step-by-step guide to building and maintaining close relationships as an adult. And they've got tons of information and tips. There are even some scripts in there to help the reader navigate those kind of awkward things that can happen in the world of adult friendships. Before we get started, I would just like to thank you all for supporting a local independent bookstore. University Bookstore is the oldest independent store in the region. We are actually celebrating our 121st anniversary this year. If you happen to be in the Seattle area, we are open daily from 12 to 4. If you're not local, or if you prefer a 24/7 shopping experience, you can find us online at ubookstore.com. And now I would like to introduce tonight's special guests, Jenn and Trin. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And can you just kind of start off by taking a moment to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. We love Seattle and we love independent bookstores, so we get to combine the both of those things. That's really special. What should I say about myself? I'm a co-author, the other half of the Friendshipping podcast, and I'm a writer and editor, and I call myself a creative arts strategist, and I don't really know what that means yet, but that's what I am.
I love
it. Trin, your turn.
I'm going to keep talking about Jenn. Jenn was a Division I athlete in college. Jenn's hair is perfect, and we are here today because we decided to start a podcast like 6 years ago. And it was because we were bored and because we both cared a lot about friendship and human interaction, and especially marginalized genders. And so we've been doing that every week for 6 years. And over the course of that time, we have a lot of notes. We would, every time we record an episode, we answer a question from the greater internet, and we answer to the best of our ability. And we had so many notes from all the episodes that we've done. And so we cleaned them up, figured out what we thought was important, and we jammed it all into a book. And here it is today, our baby. Wait, that's the back. Here it is.
Mine's upside down. It looks nice upside down too. It kind of disappears when I do this. This is my first Zoom back on everybody. I'm pretty excited about it. Trin, thank you for that introduction to the podcast and now the book. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I like to do transitions. Megan, how do you want to do? Do you want to do questions now, or should we make some stuff up?
I've got some questions for you. I'd also like to let everybody who's watching know, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Jenn and Trin, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A section or in the chat. And we'll get to those. And anything you want to ask.
Real quick, if my internet drops out, I'll be right back. The internet has never failed me until today when it went out. So I was like, I bet that's a bad omen. So just, Trin, if I drop off, it's your job to fill time until I get back on.
Oh, yeah. I will cover for you, babe. Don't you worry.
I know.
It'll be like you didn't even leave.
I'm almost hoping it happens just to see. Anyway, sorry for that interruption. Yeah, let's get to it.
Well, you guys, just from this past 4 minutes of watching you interact, can tell that you have like a really close, authentic friendship. How did that start? How did you meet each other? How did you become friends?
I want to tell it. I want to tell it this time. Thank you. Because it's funny because Jenn and I have been doing some calls today. And so I've had to answer this question a few times. And it's been like, I feel like I'm recalling more detail every time I do it. It's like The Giver. I don't know. Lois Lowry. So we met a long time ago. We met like, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago at C2E2, which is a nerd convention in Chicago. It's the Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo. And it was long enough ago that Jenn and I were both separately, not having met yet, into the game Mass Effect 2, like really into the game Mass Effect 2, like
video
a lot.
Game. It's a space opera. It's very nerdy, but it's a very well told video game.
It's very good. You can kiss aliens, and that's really important to us. So I was volunteering with the crew at C2E2, and every time we do a video haul, I think I should bring this out. I still have it. I had a piece of cosplay armor. It's in my closet. That was a piece of Legion, one of the video game characters from Mass Effect, his armor. And Jenn was like, "Oh, is Legion? Okay, so who did you date in the game?" And we just started talking, and it was wonderful. And then we ended up having the opportunity to work closely together. We've worked at jobs together, and here we are today, and it's great. I feel like it's been a really wonderful experience sharing so much with Jenn.
Back at you.
Excellent. So the back cover of my copy of the book says real big, with 8 billion people in the world, why is it so hard to meet and make new friends? Why is it so hard to meet and make new friends?
Well, Megan, in a word, capitalism. In a greater word, society. Human beings, adults, we have so little time. We have a limited amount of time and energy, and it is hard. It is hard, especially right now, to feel connected and to make new friends. It is hard because we have so many things to do. It seems so simple and so obvious, but I feel like at the same time, we judge ourselves for our lack of time and our lack of energy and our inability to give ourselves like more to our friends. And that's so silly. So let's all start forgiving each other a little bit more. IMO.
I like that. Yeah, I think grown-ups have a set of responsibilities that maybe it's a job, maybe it's school, maybe it's family or caretaking of a family member or whatever it is. But most grown-ups I know don't have an overabundance of time and energy or even money. It's not like you need money to make friends, but it's certainly easier if you have a little money to spend at an arcade or a bar or a convention or whatever the case is. It's easier to get into the places where the people are if there's like a barrier to entry. Money is one of them.
Yeah, and that's certainly still true in time of COVID. There are plenty of digital events that have run cover, which absolutely makes sense. So everybody needs to make money, but it makes everything it's hard. It's freaking hard, guys. Don't judge yourself.
Yeah, I think one thing we try to really drive home in the book is that if you're having a difficult time making friends, even if there's not a pandemic, if you have a difficult time making friends, it's not just you. It's a common problem in adulthood. I would say a joke that Trin and I both loved on Twitter from many, many years ago that really resonated with us was I can't remember who said it, but some of you, this tweet went viral, and it was the most unbelievable part about Jesus is the fact that he's over 30 and has 12 close friends, and that really makes me laugh. That really makes me laugh because being an adult, if you have one or two close friends that you can count on and see with any frequency, that's rare and very lucky.
Yeah, it's a win.
So when you do your podcast, you take letters or emails from your listeners who have questions. Has there been anything that you consistently get from people that has really surprised you that so many people have the same question about? Or conversely, has there been something that hasn't surprised you at all? It's just such a common experience and we just don't realize it.
I was at first surprised by how many people had reached out to us in the recent year or so about I'd like to make more friends right now, which is so ambitious. And it surprised me because I think to myself, like, my goodness, how do you have the time? How do you have the energy? And what I realized is that actually when people say I want more friends, what they mean is I want more from my friends, or I want to see my friends more, or I'm unhappy. What they really mean are like a number of different other things. And which is not to say that you can't make friends right now. You certainly can. And I mean, we're all alive today, so we've all been through hardship and we've all done difficult things. So if you want to make a friend right now, I would bet you that you can. It is just an immense task. And so that did surprise me, but it surprises me less and less and less.
Another question that we actually haven't gotten this question in quite a long time, but there was in the beginning of our podcast, we got it a couple times and it did surprise us. Trin, you might know what I'm going to say.
Oh
we,
yeah.
we've gotten emails that ask us, can straight men and straight women really be friends? And I kind of thought we solved that in the 90s, but I guess we didn't. so we've answered that one. We answer it extensively in the book and on the show. And that's when we record an episode like that, that's when we kind of let off some steam.
Yeah.
It is actually, I'm teasing, but it is a legitimate question because maybe we're raised. I mean, there's a reason people are asking us that. We tease because the answer seems so obvious, but it's obviously not clear. Like there is legitimate reasons we get that question.
And I think just like the I want more friends right now in COVID question, there are other layers to this that people are not seeing right off the bat. When you say, can dudes and ladies ever really be friends? Often what that person means is, can I trust my specific girlfriend around her specific hot male friend? Because it's generally a straight phenomenon. And as somebody who's both bisexual and non-binary, obviously I find this question to be very, very funny. Because according to this, I should have either no friends or every friend,
Trin, I was about to say, so Trin can't have any friends.
But also everybody's my friend. Like
What? What a confusing time for you.
And I'm embracing it, Jenn. I am. But what we like to say is that, I think that we are taught sometimes that, specifically men, because the way that we're often as a society mean to men is we say that, like, oh, all they want is sex and blah, blah, blah. And which is obviously untrue. But the impression is that men would see any relationship with a woman to be a sexual opportunity. And we know that not to be the case. Like, we know that not to be the case just looking around at our friends. If we can even say that anecdotally, like, it's absolutely true otherwise. But certainly there are people who can't be friends with the people that they are attracted to. And you know what? I'm glad you know that about yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an important thing to recognize and know about yourself. And that's definitely a big part of our book is that romantic relationships are obviously very important, but platonic love is not second best. And I really like this subject, especially this week because it's Valentine's Day, and romantic relationships get a lot of attention. They get a lot of advice. There's literally industries dedicated to this exact topic, which is kind of why we wanted to write the book. There's less information available about friendships.
Oh man, can I share a quick story? I know that this is a long answer to the question, but I've got something that I wanted. Mostly, I just want to tell Jenn. Yeah. So Jenn, today,
you all can listen. Go ahead.
Thank you for being here. Absolutely, I am talking to Jenn, but we're all in this together. So earlier today, I was asked that question, and it had been actually a while since I'd been asked that question, and it was really funny because my answer is, I'm friends with my ex-husband. He's one of my best friends. We got divorced, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago now. And the person I was talking to was like hair blown back. Like, she was like, and how does your partner feel about this? And I'm like, my partner's fine. I feel like I closed the door pretty firmly on that romance when I divorced him, and so I guess what I'm trying to get at is, even personally, I absolutely know this to be true. So anyway.
And that's such a good example of that not all friendships look alike. Obviously that person you were talking to today could not imagine being close friends with an ex, and I'm sure that's true of many people, but we have a living example here of lots of different kinds of friendships are very possible.
Great. So Jenn, you were saying, and I totally agree, that there is so much emphasis that is put on romantic relationships and not so much on platonic relationships. Why do we think that is?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. And it's funny because I just mentioned Valentine's Day, and I actually kind of like Valentine's Day. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I mean, it's a Hallmark holiday, but aren't they all kind of at this point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually don't mind Valentine's Day. It doesn't bother me for people to celebrate romantic love. But maybe it's because the answer whenever I'm a little stumped, I just assume the answer is a form of capitalism. You know, it's probably it's a little easier to
Sorry.
yeah, right. Like there's a wedding industry. There's really no equivalent to like two friends, you know, like having a ceremony, although that's kind of not, maybe there is in some cultures. And if I'm wrong about that, please send me that information because that sounds really lovely.
I have been thinking about this because, man, Jen, I can't wait to fill you in on the conversation I've had today. But one of the conversations that I had today was, oh gosh, I have ADHD and I completely lost my train of thought. Jen, do you remember what I was saying?
About ceremonies, wedding industry, capitalism,
Oh,
Valentine's Day.
thank you.
Yep.
That helped. I'm there. So, somebody asked me, do you consider your partner to be your friend? And my spouse, we are married. And I said, I consider us to be friends, but my spouse's role in my life is just completely different from my friends. We are friendly, we get along, obviously we giggle together and we have inside jokes. But my friends, they occupy a separate sphere, I would say, than my partner does. And I think that's a really good thing. I think that sometimes with our current iteration of marriage, we expect so much from that partner. We expect them to be our advice, our rock, our best friend, but also somebody who appreciates us romantically and sexually and who supports us in our career. And gosh, that's a lot. That's a lot for one person.
Yeah.
And what I find with my friends is that my friends occupy some of those roles too. Obviously, not smooching, but things like, Jen and I obviously are supporting each other in our career. My buddy Carlin and I sent her a text. It was like, I have a really fun bisexual story that I want to share with you because she and I connect on our queerness. I think that that's a really good thing to not rely on one person for all of the positive feelings in your life.
That's a really good message. Yeah, I was just thinking, my husband likes a lot of different sports, and I like one or two sports, and like we can't. It's I every time he gets into like a really sportsy conversation with a friend, regardless, and it's often with our friends that are women, I just feel so happy. I'm like, I'm so glad that you have this still in your life because I'm not going to be that person for you. I would have to do an overhaul of my hobbies and interests to be able to stay with you in this conversation. So I'm so glad that you have that, and that's certainly an argument, Trin, for like spreading your friendship around. You know, like for having lots of different friends, having friendships that look very different than one another.
Yeah, and friends and buddies, just those people that you keep on your secondary or tertiary list who are fun to have around. Yeah.
And so while you were talking, I got a question that popped up on my screen, which was, what can we learn about friendships from other cultures? Or do you have any information from any, other particular cultures that really treat friendships differently than we may?
You know, that's a great way to phrase it. I think that I learn about other cultures from my friends.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, I think friends can do so much for well, they do so much for me, but so much for other people. Friends can be joy and comfort and sustenance and protection and love and all these cheesy things. But friends can also be ways to learn about the world and learn about cultures and races and genders and experiences that you've never had or never will have. That's certainly I've learned. I read, I can't remember where I read this. I'm sure it was just like somewhere on the internet, but that students, like young students in elementary school, learn maybe more from one another as classmates than they do from the teacher. And I don't have the science on me to back that up, but I remember reading that and totally believing it immediately because I was like, oh, that's so true for me in my life. If I learned so much just from my own peers, my own friends, my own colleagues.
As I was thinking about this, I realized, my cultural experience of friendship is pretty limited to myself, really. I think I have many kinds of friendships, and I imagine that my friendships are influenced by the different cultures and backgrounds of the people that I'm friends with. But ultimately, what I know about friendship is built upon a foundation of everything that I learned from making enormous mistakes my entire life. Like that's really where I draw my inspiration. I think no matter who you are, when you are a Homo sapiens, you will be making mistakes. We are constantly bumping against each other and trying to fix our problems. And I think that that has taught me the most. And unfortunately, I cannot speak from a different cultural standpoint than my own. But that is where I learned, I think, the most from friendships is screwing up.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, Trin, one of the conversations I had today, Trin and I, just to catch everyone up, Trin and I were very lucky today. We did a couple of interviews and to promote our book, and it was very fun. And we're so lucky that we got asked any questions at all. It's kind of like this event. We're so grateful to be here. But one of the questions I got today was, so are you and your co-author like experts in friendship? And it was a cheeky question, and I'm so glad they asked, because I got to say absolutely not. And there's really no such thing. There's no such, you can't get a PhD in friendship, you can't be a doctor of friendship, or anything really. It's not a field of study, it's just a lived experience. And that's certainly the thrust of our book, which is if we come from any place of authority at all, it's only because we've messed up so many times.
Do you have any stories you're willing to share about ways that you've messed up?
Yeah,
Let's list our mistakes. Let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna list one that's not that funny but true, and then Trin, you should do one of your prank stories.
Oh, okay, I will. And I'm gonna give one that's not that funny, but also true, but also like it's fine. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My story, I don't really have a story. It's more just like an anecdote, which is I think for like maybe the first like 25 years of my life, I didn't say what I wanted. I kind of lived life sideways, where I was like, I'm just kind of cruising along. I never really learned that it's okay to say things like, hey, I miss you. Can you call me more? Or I miss you. Can you do me a favor and email me an update on your life? Like, I just didn't know there were things that you could ask for from friends that without putting them out. And that's actually asking for update on a friend might make them feel very loved. So I spent so much wasted time in friendships where I said and did nothing I wanted, or didn't ask for anything, or didn't state my boundaries and needs. So that's just one of many mistakes I've made in my relationships in my life. And I have luckily life is long, and I can keep learning this lesson over and over again.
My one like general mistake that I'm constantly kind of having to relearn is you can't tell from this call because I'm with Jenn, but I'm a deep introvert. I am. I need, if I after today I'm gonna have to just sit in the dark for like 48 straight hours and not talk to anybody just to recharge my social battery. So I know that about myself. But when I was a teen in my early 20s, I didn't know that about me, and I didn't know that it was keeping me from being close to people. Because my friends would show up to my stuff. My friends would show up to, I was in the plays in high school. I was a big theater nerd. They would go to my choir concerts, and it never hit me that they were doing it because they loved me. I just kind of felt they must feel obligated. That must be what's happening. And so I never reciprocated, because to me, going out to an event was so much energy. And why would you want to do that? And that's so ridiculous. And I never asked them to come to my stuff, but what the lesson that I came away with is that your presence means something to your friends. And it's meaningful even now when we are doing things online. If your friend is putting together Jackbox game nights for your friends every Wednesday, you don't have to go to all those for sure. But gosh, it would mean so much to that friend if you did show up. So that was one. And then I have a funny story. So I learned to not double down. Wow, did I ever. So I was out to lunch with a couple of friends, and I was meeting the best friend of my good friend. And in order to, I don't know, endear myself to the friend, I gotta say, I must have been like 19 or something. When my good friend got up, went to the bathroom, I was like, hey, you know what we should do? Oh my gosh, let's prank him. Let's do this. Let's put a napkin in his cheeseburger. And so what I was thinking was that he's going to pick up the cheeseburger, bite down, because it's a paper napkin, bite down on the napkin and be like, what's going on here? And then we would be like, we got you, napkin in the sandwich. That is not how it went down at all. He ate the entire napkin. he ate the entire napkin, the entire sandwich, and me and the friend were just kind of looking at each other, and because we were like, "Are you gonna stop him? Are you gonna stop? He's just gonna keep eating. I guess he's just gonna keep. He ate the whole thing. Oh no!" And so later, I was like, "Well, I have to tell him. He just ate an entire napkin." And so we were out walking down the street, and I was like, "Hey, we got you, pranked you. You ate a whole napkin." And certainly he did not appreciate that. And, 19-year-old me, I dug my heels in. I was like, we're just trying to bond and blah, blah, blah. But man, what a mistake on so many levels, And the lesson that I learned, which is, don't double down, but also bonding with somebody through negativity. We do it all the time. We complain about our bosses together. We complain about our mutual friends together, and some of that I think is like a necessary like kvetching process. But when we bond that way and we make our the foundation of our friendships like complaining, not good. It's not the way to be. So
Yeah,
couple
God, I
lessons.
love that story. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me, Trin. I love the napkin story. It kills me.
I
And
knew that's what you wanted me to say.
don't you just want to know like what he thought of the burger? Like, this is a really good burger. What put on this? Oh,
Texture is strange, but
yeah.
delicious.
Fantastic. Thank you. So obviously, we've talked about how making friends is always hard, but obviously the pandemic has made things extra hard. So kind of a two-pronged question. The first is, books don't get written overnight. So obviously you've been planning this book for a while. Did the pandemic affect anything that you were planning to write, and how so? And then also, do you have any tips for us on how to make friends during the pandemic?
Yeah. So when the pandemic started, when we went into isolation about 11, 12 months ago, the book was 80, I would say it was written, it was done, and it was ready
It's
to go.
drafted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was done. It was we were in the later phases of drafting, and it was going to go to print in July. So we did have a meeting with our publishers. I think actually this might have been over email, where we were all like, okay, we need this book needs a quick update. And then as we got closer to the summer and it became clear that like this isn't going to be 2 weeks, this isn't going to be 2 months, we're looking at the fall. By the time this book comes out, we are definitely going to be still in the pandemic. So we made not huge changes, not a big overhaul, but we beefed up the long distance section because we were like, pretty sure this one's still going to be relevant. And we added a couple sentences towards the beginning of the book of like, hey, you're probably feeling isolated, or at one point in your life, we know you have to be separated from your friends. And we also beefed up the section about making friends on the internet because we know for sure. Yeah, there it is. Hey, thanks, Trin. Because we can say with confidence that you are not hanging out with your friends right now, nor should you be. So here's another avenue you should explore. And not just for Zoom calls, not just for maintaining friendships. I think we all have Zoom fatigue. We had Zoom fatigue in July. Okay, like this is like we were over it. We've been over it for a long time. So, but we also advocate in the book for actually using the internet to meet new people, and that's actually that's kind of our advice really. When we're able to meet new people in person again, which will come one day, Trin and I always advocate for putting yourself in the right room or several different rooms. Like you have to go where the people are. And that might mean book club at the library or bookstore, independent bookstore. That might mean volunteering at an animal shelter or a food bank or something like that. It might mean I don't know, a sewing club. You do have to go to where the people are. You do have to do a little bit of the legwork to get yourself there. But because we can't do that right now, Trin and I go back to the internet, try to volunteer online, attend events like this one. You got to find your community, but it's not going to be easy right now.
Yeah, and as far as the second half of the question, the would you even need specific advice about making friends in COVID? And Jen, can you tell me if I repeat myself because I've been answering this question so much today.
Oh
I'm like,
no,
right?
you're good.
So
You're good.
cool. So, we always say acknowledge that it is ambitious to make a friend right now. But you have done difficult things in your life. And this is a difficult thing that you can do if that's what you need. But is what you need more friends, because at the heart of it, it's often I want to have more fun. I want something to do, and a friend is not that. That's a camp counselor, or if you need somebody to listen to your problems, that's a therapist. They're paid professionals who can do those things for you. Really take stock and inventory of your time and energy, because a friend means necessarily giving that to that friend. It's not just you get to have a good time. And I know that everybody knows that to some degree. But I think that because we are all so stressed out, we tend to forget that it's a reciprocal mutual understanding with another person, and not just like a heck a good time, you know?
That's so good, Trin. You just, a metaphor just came to me. What was it? Hold on. Okay, this is an untested metaphor, so it might not work.
I'm so
But
excited.
kind of like, okay, when you go to adopt an animal, a pet from a shelter, you there's a lengthy process. There's sometimes an interview process, maybe some form of a background check. I don't know. It's kind of like you have to evaluate your lifestyle before you actually adopt the thing you're going to start caring for. I'm not saying we should do that for friends, but I'm saying we should do like 2% of that work for new friends. You know, you should be like, hey, do I have time to invest in this right now? Do I have the energy, or do I just want to actually veg out with a movie and laugh at a comedy? Like, because you can't hire friends to make you laugh. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, if you have a lot of extra money to spare, you could hire someone to do stand up in your living room. But you probably shouldn't do that, at least until the pandemic is over.
And there are other ways to feel good in the ways that you expect your friends to make you feel good. I know that this is a very cliche thing to suggest, but because I personally have had so much success with it, I do want to suggest it. We have heard people who want more friends because life is hard and they need more support. And journaling is really great. Like, I know that, therapy is what else I want to recommend, and we always do. A professional is usually a really great idea, and it sucks that we don't all have equal access to that. But if you have feelings that you need to unload and you don't know where, a Google Doc is a great place to throw them, or a piece of paper that you can later burn in a celebration that makes you feel free of those feelings. So you can do that. I had another piece, but I forgot what it was. But I'm sure we got another question we can answer.
So when you're talking about the effort that you have to put into making friendships, and you have to be in the room where the people are, I feel like a lot of adults don't put that effort in, and they just decide that they're going to just make friends with their coworkers because that's who they see every day. And you talk a little bit in the book about how, similar to your high school dance when the teachers told you to leave room for Jesus, that in the workplace you have to leave room for capitalism. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about things to keep in mind when you decide to befriend your coworkers?
Yes, yes.
For
Okay,
sure.
so things are a little bit different now, of course, because many of us are working from home. So it used to be that our piece of advice was when you make friends with a coworker, go a little bit slow, just because you can't avoid them if you have a fight. And we don't want you to live your life that way. We don't want you to never become vulnerable or never make friends, because there's a possibility that it could go poorly. I don't think that's a good way to be. But we do think that you know, you can't really be friends with your boss until long after you leave that job. You can really like your boss a lot, and you can think your boss is a wonderful mentor, and you can have a lot of affection for them. But they are not your peer. It's not possible, because they have the ability to hire and fire you. So it is a treacherous ground. And I have made great friends in the workplace. And I mean, we met before we worked together, but working together was wonderful. And it was one of the things that really solidified that we wanted to work on other things together. Yeah, you got to leave room for capitalism, but don't live your life in a bubble too. Especially now, again, COVID. I actually have a little personal anecdote. So Animal Crossing is a video game by Nintendo, and it is for children, but mostly 30-year-old people like me play it. And one of my coworkers at one of the projects that I work on, we both are just super into it. And now we are in deep, hardcore Animal Crossing friends. and it's great. And in another life, I might have said like, I don't know if I want to get super close to somebody I'm on a project with because work is complicated, but heck it's a pandemic, guys. Feel good about your little squishy cartoon animal video game with your coworkers. That's what I have to say about that.
If you don't remember a single thing from this, please just remember that line that Trin just said. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Trin and I in general advocate for like, make friends with your coworkers if you want to. They're right there. They're convenient. It's hard to go out in the world and do new things. And if you should try to be friends with the people you see every day or every week, because life and your mental health will be better off for it. But we also advocate for being a little bit cautious. You know, like Trin said, if things go sideways or get complicated, adding a workplace is adding a lot of complexity to that. So we just say, you know, be warm, be friendly, respect the boundaries of the workplace. And oh man, I also had something I was going to say. What was it?
You got this.
Respect the boundaries of the workplace. Be cautious. And I wanted to share, Trin, you met this was before you and I, before we knew each other, but you made friends at a workplace one time by waiting in the break room with a office friendly board game, and you were like, does anyone want to play this over lunch?
So funny story, it was not an office appropriate board game, but we
Oh, really?
say that it was an office appropriate board game because we don't want me to get in trouble. It's this game it's a card game called Lunch Money where you beat each other up. It's actually pretty violent. But it's a lot of fun. And I literally at my first and worst, because, you know, there are jobs where you work in a cubicle, but there are cubicle jobs and those are different, you know?
Yeah.
This was a cubicle job and we were all pretty miserable. And I literally, I got my lunch. I got a little bit of snacks to share and I got my cards and I'm just kind of like, hey, fellow millennials, who's going to be friends with me today?
Let's make this job slightly less terrible. Let's play a game.
But also, so here's an interesting thing that we had not touched on, but I think is probably important. I once really sucked at a job because I loved everyone there so much and I spent all my time talking to them because I hated the job. Partially, I was a copy editor for an industrial supplies magazine, and it's funny because I actually still talk to a lot of them. But one of the trials and tribulations of workplace friends is you can get in trouble for emailing too much, which I did all of the time. And that's why I'm a writer now.
I didn't know that either. That is so delightful to me. You can get in trouble for emailing too much. Yeah, that's true. I had my first job out of college. My first officey job was, you weren't allowed to G-chat with people outside your team, and like it was like you weren't even allowed to G-chat about work with people that were outside your team. Like it made no sense. And I met one friend, and we were like, our friendship was formed in the fires of this terrible workplace. And then she moved teams, which means we didn't get to G-chat. And I remember this, I was like 21, 22. I remember the day she got moved to a different team. And it wasn't because she was in trouble or anything. She just like, the teams were shifting around, and that meant we wouldn't get to G-chat anymore. And I went home that evening and I cried because I was like, that was the best part of it. That was the only good part of it. Oh.
Star-crossed colleagues. My God.
Yeah, I know.
That
I know.
sucks.
It's awful. I still keep in touch with her. She doesn't live near me anymore, but I remember at the time how much it hurt. Like, no, I really needed her.
And that's the thing is, like, you know, coworkers can be your allies, and especially for marginalized people, networking is so important to feel safe in the workplace and to get opportunities that, you know, people tend to get when they have time to golf with your boss. You know, it's just so that's why we there are many reasons to be friendly to your coworkers, but of course there are some pitfalls. End.
So before I move on to my next question, I just want to remind the audience, if they have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We are going to start wrapping up in about 10-15 minutes here. So now is your chance. And I kind of wanted to ask you if you could also talk a little bit about social media affecting friendships. You know, friends kinds of means a little bit of a different thing when it's just a Facebook friend versus a real life friend. So if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. There's a lot of sides of this, right? I think right now we're all experiencing FOMO, fear of missing out, because we all are missing out in one way or the other. I do draw some comfort from the fact that all of my friends are also taking the pandemic very seriously and isolating. So it's not like they're all hanging out without me. But we do over the years, we've gotten questions from people that have a hard time with especially Instagram and Facebook, where they see people hanging out to something that they maybe weren't invited to, or maybe it's like that friend went on vacation and I can't afford to go on vacation, and it hurts to see that. And in those moments, we Trin and I take what is maybe a controversial view, which is you could mute them. You don't have to look at their photos of other people having a good time if it makes you feel sad. Like I just can't advocate for ever putting yourself in a position where that one is not necessary and two just makes you feel sad. You know, what if that sadness builds toward resentment and the friendship is wounded for it? Like, so we always say, like, if you need a break from seeing people's fun photos on Instagram, absolutely mute.
And also, everybody uses social media a little differently. So I remember my buddy was mad that I never watched her Instagram stories, and I don't know how to use Instagram. I don't know. I should have learned by now, but you know, and it's too late. It's too late for me. Everybody just move on without me. But it never even occurred to me that that would offend anybody. And I'm so glad she said something to me, because I was like, oh no, I 100% care about your life. I just literally don't know how to open Instagram stories on purpose. It'll either open on accident or it won't at all. And that's true for so many platforms. Like Jenn and I, we will talk to each other on Twitter every now and again. We don't hold long form conversations on there because we find that weird, but there are tons of people who do, and it's fine. But when you have different expectations and different needs than your friends with social media, it's a really good thing to just talk to them about it, you know? But the one conversation that you never want to have is, why did you unfollow me? And there's no good answer for that. There's no good answer for that. Okay. Like, okay, if somebody unfollows you on any social media at all, I acknowledge that it hurts. It's not fun. And I don't like it either. Like, don't get me wrong. I dislike it as well. Everyone should follow me and read everything that I do, but they won't. And the core issue about that is your friend is not rejecting you entirely by unfollowing you on Twitter. What they're doing is unfollowing you on Twitter. And when you say that out loud, it's just that phrase. They're just not going to look at your tweets. It doesn't sound so big anymore, really, does it? We have this kind of quantitative measurement of how cool we are with however many followers on however many websites there are. Just remember, there are like dozens of hamsters on TikTok who have followings larger than the population of the United States of America. Like, you're never going to be that cool. So it's fine. Let's all relax.
Oh, that's such a good way of putting it. Like, social media is important. It's a great tool for activism, but it's just one tool toward friendship. You know, it's just one. There are you know, on the other side of that, there are a lot of ways to show your love and support for your friends, and liking and faving and even following them at all on any social media does not need to be one of them.
Yep. That was great.
Awesome.
Thank you. I was also wanting to kind of get your advice on more of a local issue, which is Seattle is famous for something called the Seattle freeze, which basically is not the snow that we're having right now, which is a different kind of freeze, but basically it's extra hard to make friends here in the normal times because people tend to be really passive aggressive and just be like, oh yeah, we should totally hang out sometime, and then never make plans or be like, oh yeah, we'll do this, and then just totally flake out and not show up. So what advice can you give us to kind of make dealing with those people a little bit easier?
So, okay, I want Trin to answer this, but I do want to ask real quick. Trin, have you heard of the Seattle freeze? I've never heard of it. Oh, well, Trin and I have spent a ton of time even together in Seattle and we love it, but I've never heard of this, but you've heard of it.
I have, yeah. One of my best friends, Andy, lives out in Seattle, and it's totally a thing. And his partner is such an extrovert. Like she is so friendship all the time in a way that I could never maintain with my limited energy as a human. And she gets mad about it all the time. I'm going to say something that's going to make everyone super mad, but I believe that the Seattle freeze indicates that you all should just make fewer plans. Nobody shows up, so stop doing it. You know, your whole city is full of hills and stairs. Like you can't get anywhere. Like we live in a very flat city, and I remember the first time Jen and I visited Seattle together. Do you remember when we were going up those stairs and I was like, there's a city with stairs that I have to deal
remember
with?
thinking like, this is such a mistake. Like this, we got like 15 stairs up. And I was like, well, I'm never coming back here again. And
And then we did repeatedly for
yeah,
many
a lot.
years.
Yeah, a lot. Seattle's
Yeah.
great. I was also wearing like really thick boots, and I was like, this is how we go. It was nice knowing you, Trin.
And like I know that that's not sometimes that's not super actionable advice to just make fewer plans. But I would say if it were me, and man, I have never personally interacted with the Seattle freeze, but this is what I would do. I would choose one hangout. And I would say, hey, everybody, we are getting together on Zoom or whatever platform on this day. And I am doing this and this. We talk about Jackbox games. It's this party pack of games. It's a lot of fun to play with your friends, and it's easy to do online with people. So that's going to be my example is, I know we're going to play Jackbox games, and I want you to show up and also have a compliment for every person in the room when you get there. That's something I would do. You don't have to do that. But make clear that this is the plan. We're doing this. And if you don't show up, I'm going to be upset. Okay. And I'm not making more plans. Like this is the one thing we're doing this month. And then, if nobody shows up, then your friends need contact in another way that is not a planned event. And it could be texting memes all day. That's what I do with my brother.
Yeah, I could be really, really, really low key, like just texting. Trin, I really like your idea of like, this is the one thing. It's kind of like holding office hours. Like, okay, we are going to do this event every Tuesday, every one Tuesday a month. And if you can be there, but the show's going on without you, so you might as well come.
I love that. Yeah.
I think maybe once a month might be the way to go. I could see if Seattle people are anything like Chicago people, like the fatigue will happen pretty quickly. Like I don't know. Seattle's big on breweries, right? Like when this is all over, have office hours at a brewery.
Yeah, I'm sitting in this place and I am drinking beer until a friend shows up.
Yeah, and I'm gonna drink beer and have a good time with or without you. So you might as well come.
Yeah, I love it. I hope that that's actually helpful. And if any Seattle people see this and take that advice, let me know, because the Seattle freeze is actually like notorious. I've heard it from multiple places. That's very funny to me, because I think of Chicago as being kind of like, we're very Midwestern and we don't really look at each other in the eye sort of situation, but we do like actually hang out sometimes.
Yeah.
Baffling.
I also think it's like the people I know are very plan oriented, very, very type A. Which is really great for friendships. Maybe Seattle people, we need to, that's what the problem is. There's not enough type A people in Seattle.
We got to ship them. We got to ship them over there.
You're too relaxed, you and your plaid and your trees. You need some uptight people. That's what you need. That's the problem.
You know what it's like?
Yeah.
It's like when all the wolves died out and then there was no apex predators, and we've got to repopulate the type A people in Seattle, and we are the people who can do that.
Weed has been legal there for too long, and now you're too relaxed.
I love this. Oh man.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm going to put that to use. I'll let you know how it turns out.
Okay.
Import some type A people. I just want to remind everybody that we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. So if you have any questions, last call, go ahead and drop them in the chat or put them in the Q&A. And I just also wanted to kind of talk to you. I know we're talking about the book, but talk to you about your podcast just a little bit. You've been doing it for a really long time. You've been doing it for like 5-6 years. And I'm just curious about lessons you've learned while making it, kind of what you think the biggest difference is between like your first episode and your most recent episode.
Yeah, I learned so much. This is kind of silly. I've learned a lot about friendship just because we sit down and we think for an hour. And we try to think through other people's problems, which is actually a really interesting exercise. It's kind of good for my mental health to get out of my own head and kind of live in someone else's world. And this is kind of silly, but I've learned how to talk into a microphone. Trin, like Trin mentioned, has theater experience and is the singer and has all these talents, and I have none of those talents, but Trin was really helpful just to have like a life skill. I don't breathe into the microphone like I'm Darth Vader anymore, and I'm really glad. Yeah, I've learned a lot doing the show. I've learned a lot about myself. I was talking to a counselor, a therapist, a couple weeks ago, and we were talking over Zoom, and she said, you're pretty articulate, and it was a very sweet compliment. And I wanted to be like, oh no, I'm just performing right now. I have a podcast. Like I can't help it. Like I actually kind of cued me in to be like, I need to tone it down. I need to start acting a little bit more like a person and less like someone who's talking on a Zoom. It was like it was a compliment, but in my head it was like a cue, like, hey, this isn't being recorded and it's not going on iTunes. Like you need to like, turn it down a little bit.
Everybody wants to get an A+ in therapy, you know?
I was like, please leave me a nice review. Can I get 5 out of 5 stars?
Right? Like everybody wants to be the funny patient that your therapist has, or like maybe it's just me and Jenn, but you know what? I think it's everybody. I think we all want validation. Okay. So what have I learned from this many years of doing the show? Man, Jenn says that she has no theater experience, but she has such a natural wit, and she takes her time and her thought with her words in a way that I have never done and will never, but I have gotten better at it. Just speaking a little bit more clearly and slowly and making a point, I think is just I did not previously have that skill, and right now I have a pretty tenuous grasp on it. The other things that we learned, I say we, but I'm talking about me. It's the same reason I watch so much 90 Day Fiance and Divorce Court. It's because, gosh, what a different experience of life sometimes people have, like in these questions, and I mean that in like a completely beautiful way. I'm not like, it's so entertaining, these people's problems. I love drama. I do love drama, but what I mean by that is we get questions from every side of every problem. We get questions from people who are very clearly doing something wrong, and we get questions from people who are like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And they're doing nothing wrong. So having just another insight onto more of a slice of the population has been really fun for me, I think. Oh my God, can you hear my cat? I hope you can't hear my cat.
Oh no, which cat is it?
It's Roasty. She's thumping everywhere. She's got 3 legs, so.
So we are almost out of time. Is there anything out of this entire book that is full of such great information? If there was just one thing that people would take away from this, what is that?
The one thing people should take away is buy the book. $14.99. Get it from an independent bookstore. No, I want people to take away from the book that your friends you matter in your friends' lives, probably more than you think. Trin, you touched on this earlier. You said it was a revelation for you in your 20s when you realized your friends liked it when you showed up places. I know, it's mind-blowing. So I think about that, and I'm certainly going to hold that close when the pandemic is over. And next time I maybe want to cancel or bail, I might hit the pause button and be like, this event, I don't think it's going to be any different if I'm there. But logically, like, this isn't like, I'll never know because we don't live in a multiverse, or do we? I don't know. Like I should go see my friends. And of course, that doesn't mean you should never bail or cancel. We are so strongly in favor of bailing and canceling. In fact, we are so strongly in favor of it that I would say it's a little controversial for me to even say, maybe don't cancel.
But Jenn, both sides of that are so valid though.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, when you spend like 30 years canceling and then you have a revelation like, hey, maybe don't cancel. It's life-changing. Anyway, so that's my that's what I hope people take away is, if you are a serial canceler, maybe try switching it up. And if you make way too many plans, maybe make less plans. I don't know. give it a try.
I'd say the main takeaway that I'd want people to get from the book is make your needs and boundaries known. Your friends want to know how best to love you. And if you have a boundary that's like, I am not watching your Instagram stories, it is actually helpful to say that out loud. Your friends want to know. And actually, a takeaway that I think people won't expect to take away from the book is you don't have to be friends with people.
Oh,
Leave. Drop that smoke bomb. Get out of there. If your friend feels like the annoying part-time job that you have to maintain, it's time to take a reassessment of that relationship.
oh, good, Trin. Yeah, we didn't talk about that yet. I know we just have a couple minutes here, so I'll say this quickly. As strongly as we advocate for being friends and making friends, strengthening your relationships, just as strongly do we believe you don't have to be friends with everybody or even anybody that makes you feel more bad than good.
Yeah. Thumbs up. I like that.
Perfect. Well, we are out of time. I have enjoyed talking to you so much. Thank you so much for doing this and being here. Everybody who's watching, thank you so much for attending, for supporting your independent bookstore. This will be up on our YouTube channel if you want to watch it later, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I'm going to say thank you again and good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Take care.